AT&T, Verizon, US Cellular, and some other mobile carriers across the nation were affected by what seemed to be a widespread, soft, preemptive cyber attack. Now, the group that is being suspected to be responsible for this is called Volt Typhoon. They are a Chinese hacking group, and they got in to check the systems, see how they could manipulate them, gain an advantage, and down them. And they didn't go all the way, so this tells me that this is a test and a preemptive strike on what we could see very closely here very soon in the next days, weeks, or months. And so I start this whole thing off by saying, if you don't have a plan of action to communicate with your friends and family member in the event that something like this were to occur, make sure you now set up a plan for yourself to be able to do that effectively. It's very important to be ready and be prepared in the event of something like this. The reason being is access to your bank account, the financial institutions and the implications there of them being impacted. Perhaps they could go in and wipe people's bank accounts and even diminish records so that if somebody were to go back after something comes back online, if it does, it can say, hey, I had this much in my account. And the bank says, we don't have a record of that. We're showing you only had this balance. We're not giving that back to you. Or the fact of people's money being tied up digitally through their credit card or Apple Pay or whatever else they might use. And now there's no access to that because the financial institutions or systems are down because they don't have the ability to get back online. You think about the fact of medical systems and the ability to treat people or send information, that getting wiped. The grid altogether getting wiped and taken offline, and no longer any power to be able to generate for people's heat or cooling, being able to transmit communications. Our defense systems, our missile systems that are all handled and managed by technology, those things going offline, or these guys going in and sending some type of code to initiate missile systems. These are real possibilities. And these are things that I've talked about before. And so when we see these preemptive measures actually taking place, I hope that it causes some of you to wake up and realize that this is not a conspiracy theory. Now, I also thought back immediately once this occurred this morning, and I'm sitting there reading some of the information on the news. Back in 2023, if you recall, there were these Chinese spy balloons that flew across the entire span of the U.S. And it said that they were transmitting, these were surveillance balloons, gathering information, coordinates, whether it be on areas where there are security facilities set up, major grid information regarding our power grid, and being able to transmit this information back and then proactively go out and gather that intel so that they can have a preemptive strike and test out the systems. So could this be the start of what's getting ready to actually unravel, giving us a level of predictive programming, telling us what they're going to do before they actually do it? And I think it's a very real possibility, a reality that is unfolding right before us. The World Economic Forum's CEO and founder, Klaus Schwab, said it from his own mouth. He said, listen, pay insufficient attention to the idea or the reality of a comprehensive cyber attack coming that would knock down all power structure, medical structure, financial institutions. And he said, in comparison to the COVID-19 era that we just went through, it would make that look like a small disturbance in comparison to a comprehensive cyber attack. So these guys understand what they're doing. They understand the implications here and the impact that could come about from something like this. And so you have to be well aware and listen to their cues, not to be afraid, not to be inundated or overtaken by this thing or consumed with it, but aware so that you can be prepared. And so you go on living your life doing what you're doing, but be aware and spread this information to help others so that they can properly prepare themselves in the event that something like this occurs as well. Now, in other news, if you haven't paid attention, because most of the mainstream media is going to block off this narrative and try to shape it into something else, the FBI hired a gentleman by the name of Alexander Smirnov, who's an Israeli citizen. They hired him about 14 years ago to spy for the U.S. So he was contractually obligated and allowed to break the laws on the FBI's behalf. And when he alerted the FBI, finally came back and reported to them and said, hey, listen, Joe and Hunter Biden were receiving millions of dollars from this company called Burisma out of Ukraine. The FBI basically buried the report. They tossed it, wiped it. Now that Congress has a Biden DOJ in place, they're actually prosecuting Smirnov. And to add insult to the injury, they didn't want to give him bail because the FBI paid him so much over the years that his net worth was like $6 million. So the Biden regime is sending a message to whistleblowers through this guy, right? Kind of like a Julian Assange situation that if you don't keep your mouth shut, you're going to jail. And as a matter of fact, Julian Assange right now, they're having his ongoing hearing and trial because the U.S. is attempting to extradite him here back to the U.S. And there's some rumors and reports that Assange himself, he couldn't even go to the hearings and stand trial because he's so sick. And all because of the fact that somebody came and gave him intel that, like any other journalist would have done. The New York Times has done this, the NY Post, the Washington Post. I mean, all these other news outlets on a major scale have reported information that they're given. That's what a journalist does. So he did the same thing on WikiLeaks. Intentional efforts that the U.S. took to create crimes that took place during the process of war and a number of other things. And because he reported this corruption and shared this information, this is why they've been after him. There was even a leak of audio where Hillary Clinton says, hey, can't we just airstrike this guy and just wipe him out? The intelligence directors at the time were talking about poisoning him, whether through, injectables, through his air conditioning system, ventilation system, or even through the water. And they talked about all these measures. Why? Because this guy leaked information and he has a ton more that they're trying to silence him and make him an example that if you tell the truth and if you expose their lies, they're going to kill you and wipe you off the face of the earth. And in this case, the rumors are that Assange has said, listen, I don't want to go back to the U.S. I don't want to be extradited because I would much rather die or kill myself than go back to the U.S. because I know already what they're going to do. And this is what we live in. First Amendment right, free speech, freedom of the press, being able to report information, especially when it's corruption from within our own government, and sharing that so that the American people who should have the say and the control over the government and what they actually do cannot stand up and say anything regarding the corruption, or else they will be silenced. The ultimate silencing, death. But in the case of this gentleman, Alexander Smirnov, the U.S. magistrate, Judge Daniel Albritz, has allowed release from custody and monitored by GPS until his trial. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, in other news, on X, Gmail and Google are currently trending. And the reason being is there's this email that's going around that's saying Google is sunsetting Gmail. It goes on to say, dear Gmail user, we're reaching out to share an important update about Gmail. After years of connecting millions worldwide, enabling seamless communication, and fostering countless connections, the journey of Gmail is coming to a close. As of August 1st, 24, Gmail will officially be sunsetted, marking the end of its service. This means that as of this date, Gmail will no longer support sending, receiving, or storing emails. Why is Gmail setting? I mean, this is weird, right? There's a lot of speculation surrounding this. People are saying, why in the world would Gmail be doing this? Well, some are saying because of very telling information, sensitive information that's been out there regarding different politicians, celebrities, high-level people. There has been information that has been passed that is incriminating, that is being sought after. And so doing this is their way to blanket approach and cover it up and say that there's emerging new technology coming into place. Whatever the case may be, this is unfolding as well. I want to hear from you guys about this specifically. Tell me what you think. Why would they be doing this? Why would they be sunsetting the platform to send and receive emails? That doesn't make sense. And why now? Or is this just a big troll operation and it's not even real altogether? So I want to hear from you guys. Tell me what you think about it. If you haven't seen it, I think we're actually making some type of headway, maybe specifically just in Canada. I'm not sure. But Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, all right, PM up in Canada, believes that there's a deliberate undermining of mainstream media by conspiracy theorists. I'm not even going to respond to that, but I'm going to let you watch his video right now. Check this out.
There is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to and global used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
I think it's kind of funny and comical the fact that this guy, who is the puppet of Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, who has raved about this guy, Justin Trudeau, saying that he is one of the young global leaders who has infiltrated or penetrated the cabinets and has really taken a side, being specific to the WEF, their structure, their policies, their measures, their vision, and taking that and implanting it into Canada. And I mean, the measures this guy's taken against truckers, against freedom of speech, the fact that he's allowing certain things to occur inside of his country where parents no longer have parental rights, they have parental responsibilities, as I showed you before from Garrison. I mean, there's a number of things that this guy is just a psychopath about, yet he has the audacity to claim that, conspiracy theorists are undermining the mainstream media. Of course they are, because all the lies, the propaganda, the tactics to dismantle and create ideological subversion and have psychological operations, these psyops that are occurring, being pumped out through the airways, and people aren't buying it anymore. And because of that, they're resisting and they're fighting back. And of course, they're speaking out. That's why you have all these rogue, independent, alternative media outlets like myself included, who have decided to stand up in the face of tyranny and actually project and say, this is what's taking place. We see it. And when you hear a voice that is similar to what you've been thinking, what happens? People naturally band together. And there's more power in our numbers versus their power structures that have this ability to pump these narratives out. And I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. These guys are insane. They're literally driven. They're blood drunk. They're power drunk. And they want to retain their power and control because they want to finish off the job that they started. But we're doing something about it. It's apparent. They're saying it out of their own mouth. We have to keep going now more than ever. We can't back down at this point. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is that I'm not sure how many of you have actually read the book Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. It's very interesting to know the rabbit hole of the power structure that truly lies beneath the surface of everything that's in place. A good friend of mine, we were talking recently, and he mentioned something to me. He says, you know what? At the end of the day, all roads lead to Rome. And as I'm reading, researching, studying, and you look at all the various things that are taking place in the world, whether it be a situation like today, Volt Typhoon, this hacking group from China that's infiltrating and tapping into our mobile systems, our U.S. cellular carrier systems, and trying to down these, to the COVID narrative, to the various movements of and measures to take over our freedom of speech, our rights, the infringement upon elections worldwide, the mass weather events that have taken place, not only in Lahaina, but what we've seen in California just recently, the down in Chile, to Mexico, and some of the DEWs and videos and film that people have sent regarding that, if you haven't checked that out. You see all these different things, and it's like, how are all of these random things, right, seemingly random things happening simultaneously? And you begin to understand that there is a deep embedded connection through all of these things. Now, the book of Revelation and various aspects in Scripture have prophesied about a lot of these things coming in the end times. But you see how these things are all tied together. That this is very much a fight between good and evil, light and dark. It's a fight that is taking place in the heavenlies as well as in the physical. It's a multi-dimensional war that's taking place. And we have to be aware of this and stay spiritually minded that we're fighting not against just flesh and blood here, but against principalities and powers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. And the only way that we are going to win is through God, through his power, through his spirit working and operating in us. And in our prayers, we are able to unleash certain things, like Daniel, who was prayed out and cried out to God because certain things were being held from him. An answer to his prayer was being held because there were real principalities and forces at work. So I really recommend for you guys to pray, to really tap in to your spiritual side, get in connection with God. There's other things happening here. Don't be fooled by religion. Don't be fooled by the various aspects that are out there that are trying to tell you that this is nothing. Be awake, be aware, and continue to fight those psyops, guys. Look, if this content is valuable to you, smash that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel here. Drop some comments because I want to hear your take and your position on all of this that's taking place. Follow me on X. Follow me on IG at Joey Vantes. Get some merch, guys. You can send a donation. We have a number of things coming for you, including the documentary that I've been talking to you guys about. Can't wait to unleash this. It's going to be powerful. And until next time, we'll see you soon.